When the flying squad began making arrests, Tommy Butler instantly suspected that Bruce Reynolds, the Southwest Gang's Napoleon, was the ringleader of the Great Train Robbery. With all his accomplices getting arrested, Reynolds knew the police would be after him, so he sent his infant son to live with family, moved into a borrowed apartment in the heart of London, hiding in plain sight, and parked a brand new car in a long-term garage near the airport, telling the manager he'd pick it up in early September. It was a decoy. If the police ever found it, he wanted them to think he'd left the country. However, something must have felt off for the manager. He called the police, and a week later, Reynolds' face and description were on the front page of nearly every newspaper in Britain. The walls were closing in, so Reynolds took his money and fled to the north of England to lay low. His wife joined him a few days later, but they were recognized the day she arrived, so they fled to South London. She dyed her hair red. He stopped leaving the house. By October, 7 of the robbers were already behind bars. 2 more were being hunted. In early December, a police officer knocked on the door of Reynolds' new flat. His nervous wife let him in, so Reynolds tore off his clothes, dove into bed, and posed like a man who had just had a very productive morning with his wife. The officer, caught off guard, apologized and walked out, but Reynolds knew he was cutting it close. In April 1964, he heard the news. His crew had been sentenced 30 years each, and that was the final straw. Reynolds was forced to make a decision he'd avoided for nearly a year. He shaved his head, grew a mustache, bought a fake passport, bribed a pilot, flew from rural England to Belgium, and from there, Mexico. Just like that, he was free. After pulling off the heist of his dreams, Reynolds lived the fantasy to match. Lavish dinners, hotels, fancy cars. He was burning through his fortune with style. But inevitably, the money dried up. And for a man who once prided himself on planning every detail, Reynolds had no backup plan. In late 1966, he drove his family out of Mexico, across the United States, and into Canada, where another fugitive train robber was hiding out. He tried to persuade him to team up again for one last job, but the answer was no. Reynolds moved again, this time to the south of France, but his money was almost gone. In just 5 years, Reynolds had burned through the equivalent of £3.6 million in today's money. That's £56,000 a month gone. By 1968, he made the only move he had left. He returned to London, where he found that none of his old associates wanted to work with him. After 2 months of trying, Reynolds had merely £5,500 left. Then, on November 8th, someone rang the doorbell. Reynolds' 6-year-old son answered, and a dozen detectives stepped through the doorway, up the stairs, and into the bedroom. Leading them was Tommy Butler. "Hello, Bruce. It's been a long time." Reynolds' response was, "C'est la vie." Before taking him to the police station, Butler let him say goodbye to his family. He knelt down and told his confused son, "Dad's been a naughty boy, and he's going away for a long time." In January 1969, Bruce Reynolds, the gentleman thief, the mastermind behind the Great Train Robbery, was sentenced to 25 years in prison for conspiracy and armed robbery. He served 10. After the trial, though, Tommy Butler was asked if this was the end of the investigation. His answer was simply no. Although the mastermind was behind bars, several of the Great Train robbers were still missing, and even those who were already in prison were not keen to stay there.